Hello and welcome to another episode of Get the Gist podcast, where we delve into the stories of industry leaders shaping the future. I'm your host, Chandan Goswami, co-founder and CPO of Good Gist. We built Good Gist to help busy professionals save time on routine tasks like email triage, scheduling, data entry, document processing, research, and many more. Today, I'm very excited. We are joined by a true innovator in e-commerce logistics and fulfillment, Paul Jarrett, CEO and co-founder of Bulu. Paul has spent over a decade transforming the way CPG brands approach storage, packing, and fulfillment, helping them to navigate the tricky world of omnichannel shipping. From launching one of the first subscription boxes to powering logistics for major brands like Disney, BuzzFeed, and GNC, Paul has built a company that simplifies complexity. But beyond the business, he's a mentor, a problem solver, and someone who believes in showing up, double down on what you do best, and creating a lasting impact. I'm looking forward to learn so much from Paul from this podcast. Paul, thank you so much for doing this. Welcome to the show, and I'm personally very excited to have you here.
Thanks, Chandan. I appreciate you having me on, and I'm ready to get into it, man. Let's get some sound bites.
Yep, thank you. Paul, let me start with your journey. Bulu started with subscription boxes and evolved into a logistic powerhouse right now. What was
Yeah,
the turning point that made you shift focus? Or if you can just in general give me or tell us your journey and then the turning point that, uh, that made you shift focus.
yeah, absolutely. Well, it's interesting how fast 12 years goes, right? And when I think of all we have done over the past 12 years, it exhausts me just to think about it. I've lost all of my hair also. So no, but we started, my co-founder, who also happens to be my wife, Stephanie, and I started about 12 years ago. And we had been working in the marketing and advertising agency world. We worked in New York City, we worked in San Francisco. And, it was one of those things where we kind of saw the writing on the wall for advertising. And it's one of those things too where like your like AI agent has replaced so many jobs in that industry. And so we really wanted to basically we were like kind of tired of working like 60, 80 hour weeks. And although we made like good money, it's just at the end of the day we didn't own anything. And also just that bureaucracy of decision making, and it isn't always in advertising and marketing the best idea wins. It's like who's pushing it the most. So we decided that we're going to start our own thing. We weren't quite sure what it was, but I did get some good mentors, and I started asking people kind of like, how do you, start a business? I thought maybe it might be one thing, but I really like pride myself on trying to not just listen to what people are saying, but like really understand them. And I dove really deep into a lot of business books and a lot of mentors and did my homework. And really what stuck with me, and thank God, something has, but it was that if you can solve a difficult problem for somebody, there's money to be made, right? And
Absolutely.
so once we were running this half marathon in San Francisco, and at the end of it, we got a bunch of samples. And I thought, this is crazy that we're getting all of these samples of everything from food, supplement, shoes. I remember carrying like a couple gallons of milk. I'm from Nebraska, like grew up poor in a trailer park, and somebody's giving you free milk. I was like, yeah. So we're lugging all these samples home, and I thought, man, this is crazy that nobody asked us what our email was. Nobody wrote down like, I was a giant 6'4" ogre white guy running a half marathon in San Francisco. Like no demographics, no nothing. And we just kind of like thought to ourselves, there's a real value in understanding what the ROI is, the return of investment is on a sample for people, right? And so the original idea was a bit of like, let's contact companies, get samples of products, and then let's put those in like already outgoing e-commerce shipment boxes and get some information. But very quickly, we saw the popularity of subscription boxes were just taking off. There was a company called Birchbox that was one of the very first, and they did makeup and beauty samples. And we knew that Birchbox, which sampled out makeup and beauty samples, that vitamins were a fast follower to makeup and beauty. So we really kind of saw that, and we decided like, hey, let's kind of look at their model. Let's, essentially copy what it is, but in another industry, because we can move quickly. And we weren't sure how much funding we were going to get. Lo and behold, about 40 to 60 days later, before we had a website, before we had sales, we had 1.5 million in funding, which was like insane to me, right? Poor Nebraska kid. I'm like, oh no, somebody's trusting me with this money. So we launched, and the concept was $10 a month. Customers would get a Bulu box that contained 4 to 5 premium vitamin supplement healthy snack samples. They would fill out information about the product. We'd provide that to the brands. We weren't paying for the samples. And it worked well. And we grew to over 60,000 subscribers, monthly subscribers. Yeah, it was awesome. But the catch was we were the sixth subscription box, the first that wasn't makeup and beauty. And within a couple of years, there was over 10,000 different subscription boxes out there. So customer acquisition costs kind of went through the roof. And, when you're selling the $10 box, it really turned into kind of like the box we would lose money on, but when we'd get people to come back to the website to make full-size purchases, that's when we'd actually make our money. But we kept understanding and knowing and seeing the trend of more subscription boxes. That's just going to raise customer acquisition costs. And it was creating a problem. We raised some more capital. In our spare time, we built a software and sold it, but that's a different story. But we're kind of sitting there one day and I was like, like by our experience in New York City and San Francisco working on big brands, I'm like, they have a lot of marketing and advertising dollars. And frankly, they have a lot of excess like media, like value added media that they never used, right? They didn't even know what to advertise on certain things. So we just kind of picked up the phone and started calling big brands. And lo and behold, we started doing subscription boxes for some of the biggest brands in the world. So we're doing GNC's subscription box, different programs with Disney, Clorox, Lululemon, you name it. We were doing boxes for everybody. And it was an awesome business that was growing quickly, very profitable. But the challenge is that we were offering 8 different services to people, right? So we were doing the logistics for storage, packing, shipping. We're doing financials, customer service. We're building out the website. We're sourcing products. So we're doing all of these things. And the pandemic kind of crept up on us, right? And hit us. And it was almost overnight that all of our clients either paused their program or paused paying us, right? One thing they don't tell you is like in a state of chaos, big brands, like they'll circle the wagons and they just kind of say, hey, you can wait. I mean, you can hold up your contract and complain all you want, but guess what? They got more lawyers and they got deeper pockets, right? So that kind of started a really challenging time for us. And for about 2 years, we struggled along. Our investors kind of had one idea with what we should do with the company. We kind of had another idea. Luckily, we negotiated with them for about 2 years, which I wouldn't wish on anybody. But my wife and I ended up buying the company 100% in October of 2023, which was the good kind of buy. But we were then sitting there, we had grown like crazy and we had to reduce people, and just anybody that was in logistics that made it through that time, like they should get a Purple Heart or a special award, right? But we're kind of sitting there with this company and we thought like, we really aren't quite sure what we're going to do. We have this awesome warehouse. We have awesome staff. We have a huge skill set. Yes, we can go offer these turnkey subscription box services to big brands, but that's a really long tail sale. And frankly, it was very challenging to manage all 8 of those services. So I kind of thought to myself, like, if I was a consultant and I came into Bulu, which we had consultants before, right? And I was to review, like, what would I tell you? Well, automatically, most great consultants tell you to cut down and to focus on a few things, right?
Yep.
And then I kind of went back to like the early days of when we started and just kind of thought to myself, like, we have to solve a hard problem. That's what it is. We can't just offer fulfillment or customer service or website design. Like you can do that, but it's really challenging and you're kind of competing in that red water with everybody. And I always kind of think like, what gets me, out of that red water? It's like blue ocean strategy, right? What gets me out of that shark infested red bloody water close enough where I can market to that group, but I'm just far enough where we're different. And I did the thing that I always do, and it was back against the wall, no cash, all of those things. And I just started picking up the phone, and I just opened up our CRM and started calling random brands,
Mhm.
and kind of saying like, tell me about some of the problems that you have in logistics. Like, we have this facility, we've bought it, we have an opportunity to build software to do different things. And it was rough because you're kind of, not just having the conversation what their problem is, but they're also going like, well, what happened to you? And you're like, well, Disney owes us $2.5 million, GNC, you're like, don't want to say those things. Like, you're like, forget the past. Like, how can we look forward? And I will forever remember I had about 200 phone calls, and I was doing the thing where like I was creating presentations
Mhm.
and just trying to kind of sell it, even though I was like, I don't even know how we're going to pull it off, just to try to get any kind of understanding of what the challenge was. Because one of the things that you learn in logistics is there's a lot of acronyms. There's a lot of people that are saying the same thing, but using different words. But a lot of people don't know the industry and they can't articulate it, right? And I will forever remember I was like at a pitch competition as a judge. And I was kind of sitting there thinking to myself, like, man, what am I doing here? I should be working. And, like, I don't even know if my company's going to make it. And, here we are. But this gal was pitching this like Bluetooth water bottle product, and it just kind of hit me of like, man, she is not going to be able to sell and ship where she wants to ship. What's wild is that most brands, consumer packaged goods brands, right, like shelf stable products, they end up selling where they can sell, not where they want to sell.
Exactly.
Like, that's a problem. Like, this water bottle should be in Shields. She's like not going to be able to pull that off. And I kind of like had a conversation with my co-founder, and I said, I think it's crazy, but if we offer people, and we can truly do it, but if we offer consumer packaged goods brands the ability to ship directly to retail stores like Costco, Walmart, Target, we also offer them the ability to ship to customers' front doors, just their homes in general. Also, Amazon and all of these new TikTok, YouTube, Fair, all of these new channels that are popping up every day. I mean, even on WhatsApp, right? If we can take all of those orders and digitally build out those APIs that connect,
Yep.
but also our team knows how to pack it because, I don't know if you know the industry, but if you don't pack it correctly for Walmart, they're going to ding you like $10,000, send you home, right? And it happens all the time. And so what we found was a lot of companies were using 1 to 3 different fulfillment 3PL companies, one to do their B2B, one to do their D2C, maybe even one to do their Amazon. And so we started offering that, and almost instantly people started jumping on us. And there were some other people that were doing similar things. So we were like, let's kind of move the dial. Let's get a little bit more into blue water. What can we do? And we found out that our ability to do different kits and bundles and kind of put stuff in a box, really, that was almost a technological challenge where, yes, some other 3PLs like us could ship products B2B, D2C, Amazon, social media. But once the product got complicated at all, it was not available for them to do. So that's what we started doing. We say we do the tricky ship, but really, if you were to ask us what we do, I would say we are connecting digitally and creating a real-time dashboard for brands to be able to go sell their consumer product wherever they want, any amount, any location, any variation. And it seems like such a simple idea that even when I say it, I'm like, man, I can't believe there's not more people doing it. But that's the reality, and why I love the logistics industry is because it is really archaic. And so now we solve that problem. And, last I checked, I think in the last year or so, we've grown over 50 clients. So we're moving in the right direction. We've got a couple of clients signing soon, and we've already started looking at, more warehouse space and kind of deciding like, is that the service that we offer? But also, like, when you're in an industry like ours, there's all sorts of tough problems that need to be figured out. So, just applying like a little AI to what we do too is like just groundbreaking for our industry. But yeah, solving a problem has been our way of always being able to move forward.
Wow. What an incredible story. A concept that started in a San Francisco marathon, going into
Yeah,
$1 billion industry. And my biggest takeaway from what you said is that you always need to keep thinking how you improve or how you kind of, face the challenges. You have done incredible things on this, always kind of stayed ahead of the curve to see the
yeah.
challenges. And, that's an incredible story.
Yeah, it's interesting with like all the tariff stuff that's coming out now, and everybody's nervous and whatever, and I'm like embarrassed to say it, but I'm kind of like I get excited because I'm like, oh, this is opportunity. Yeah, I'm like this is the part where you shut up and you listen, and there's I think a real opportunity for us to help companies make bigger shipments into the US. I mean, it's going to be a challenge and it's going to be wild. It almost feels like pandemic part 2 in the logistics industry, right? But if you can, you just always have to remember like everybody's going through it. And are you going to be one of those people that struggles through it? Or are you going to innovate through it? And so, yeah, it's wild to say, but a little bit of chaos there, it's not bad. It opens it. And I think you have to look at it like that to just mentally and kind of like physically like get through it. Cause, nobody wants these things to happen. But if they do, you better embrace the chaos.
Yep. Yep. Um, My second question, I think you already answered that in part. You often talk about brands being stuck in a traditional linear fulfillment.
Yeah.
But can you break down quickly what that means and how Bulu is solving it?
Yeah. So a lot of companies, when they start, this is like we see this a dozen times a week. There's a company that starts off, they have a cool product. We'll just say like a pizza dough product, right? They start off, it's a great idea, great product, all the things kind of line, and they pop up a Shopify site, right? And, they a lot of times they don't have any experience or understand logistics. So they just start packing it themselves. I mean, heck, that's what we did early on, right? Inevitably, they kind of see the opportunity with Amazon, right? Or somewhere else. And they go, well, let's put our product there, right? And all of a sudden, they have to start doing things like barcoding your product, registering, that have certificates and insurances and all that sorts of stuff. And a lot of times they might take that on themselves or they'll find, everybody's like, I got an Amazon guy, right? And so automatically now they're essentially creating like two revenue streams that usually don't sync up, right? And they're kind of thinking in the back of their head, like, we'll fix that someday. They don't even know the term UMS, warehouse management system. They don't know what PIM, product information management software is like, and they shouldn't know those things, right? Like those are a totally different industry skill set. And then, if they do see some traction, what we see inevitably is like a big retailer will come to them and say, okay, we're going to give you 2,500 end caps. It's Target. We want you to repackage your product like this, like this. Okay, you're EDI compliant, right? And because this brand has been doing well on Shopify and maybe Amazon and maybe a couple other places, they're like, yeah, let's go, like let's do it. They always say yes, and they kind of turn around. They're like,
Correct.
what's EDI compliance? Like, how are we going to do this, right? And they go find somebody to help manage that for them. They get maybe a little bit more traction, and now they want to sell on fair.com or maybe Etsy or eBay or wherever it is. And what they do is they're just adding these revenue streams and they're not syncing any of their information together. And a lot of times, if they use a fulfillment company, I hate to expose it, but a lot of those fulfillment companies are on Excel or using paper still, right? And what we see happens is, especially if it's a food product with expiration date, inventory problems are inevitable. They're just not tracking what they need when they need it. Packaging, ingredients, labels, tape, all of that stuff. And they have an inventory management problem. Next thing they're unable to keep up because the inventory is all mixed up. Target dings them, they send their product back. Now, with us, if you were to work with us, the first thing that we do is we're going to create you a dashboard to sync up all of your information, right? Like, so it's all within your dashboard. We can push or pull it in real time to Shopify. It doesn't really matter where the data is going, but really, I would say our solution is we have 150 plus APIs that are already built. Instead of that like linear individual revenue channel, out of the gate, we already have the APIs ready to go. So really, the data is already flowing between Target, between Walmart, and we really empower those brands to go sell wherever they want. And really, the difficult part then is every order that comes through to us, specific packing instructions are attached, right? So our people might get like an e-commerce order that's going to somebody's home. And that same day, they might get, 4 pallets for Costco that come in for that same client. And our ability that in real time, as soon as somebody hits the barcode and pulls something off of the shelf in our warehouse, it's updating. And we've created notifications and other systems. So our clients can keep in touch in real time what's happening with their product. So they're not stuck like, individual integrations or kind of like, halfway okay integrations. With our system, it's all built in and they can see it live, real time dashboard. And the outcome is if we can find a great consumer packaged goods brands that has a great sales team, they can go sell wherever they want and we can integrate and fulfill it on the back end. And as simple as that sounds, it's pretty groundbreaking for our industry.
Absolutely. I kind of totally agree with the fact how you emphasize on integration, because it cannot operate on a silos. It has to integrate with the systems that your customers are using, and that's kind of the philosophy we also follow on Good Gist. Now let me dive into the most talked about topic right now, AI.
Yep. Next to tariffs.
Yeah. uh, So AI is reshaping the fulfillment and logistics. That's what we see from our research and from our customers. Where do you see the biggest opportunities for automation in this space? I mean, not only like summarization of information, but agentic AI taking actions on behalf of your customers, or on behalf of do your processes correctly. And so where do you see the AI impact on kind of fulfillment and logistics?
Yeah, I think there's kind of like the industry wide kind of point of view. And then there's also like the individual per company take. And I'll kind of speak of like, what we've been using it for and where we see like some easy solutions. One thing that we do different is we do a lot of like content and social media marketing. So definitely utilizing it for that to create, anything from blogs all the way to like newsletters. So that's been, it's honestly probably saved us about 2 positions within the company. And that's rare for a logistics firm to have that. So it's been really beneficial there. Another thing that we've done is we have connected just a basic GPT to our CRM, and to be able to have, our sales team, our marketing team, and our proposals estimates team all just kind of like talk to a chatbot and ask it questions about a client versus, I got to email somebody, tell them something, then they go to like the CRM client page and they got to like sift through emails. It's so much easier to just pull up my phone and say like, where are we at with this client XYZ? And I kind of like get a summary. So that's been like, I think we underestimate how much time that saved us. I mean, even for our sales team, I'll see them saying, we have X amount of pallet spaces open. Go through our CRM, give me a list of 10 clients that make the most sense for, the availability of space that we have. So those 2 things alone have probably replaced a handful of people in our company, right? And I haven't heard of anybody in logistics using an AI kind of GPT chatbot for that purpose. So, which is again like a way to just kind of stay ahead of our industry. And it's really simple, right? The other thing that we've seen is a lot of the softwares and partners and companies that we're working with are utilizing a lot of AI to create almost like chatbots of sorts. So if one of our users, there's some pretty complicated software in logistics, and just that ability to ask questions to something and have it point you in the right direction. But the other thing that I've seen our team do is instead of our team having to look up like packing instructions for a client, we can just ask directly within the computer. And this is a AI feature that one of our software companies put in place. It can just say like, give me the, distribution center packing instructions, blah, blah, blah. And it just populates. So I feel like on the most basic level, it's just saved us a lot from wasting time in like researching and finding documents,
Absolutely.
whereas we can just like kind of ask something. And then I think the other thing is it's been really beneficial with like labor reports and forecasting, right? Being able to ask it, here's what we're going to do. And based on our history of similar clients, here's kind of a projection. But I will also say that like having a human double check something like you guys have with your software is absolutely key, right? Because there are the hallucinations, right? But that's just the tip of the iceberg of what you can actually use it for. I saw our team the other day, everybody was looking up like impacts of tariffs on logistics industries. So yeah, it's kind of wild what, potentially it could be used for. I'm really looking forward to, there's one company that we're working with now, and it's utilizing AI within your security cameras actually measure the performance and efficiency of specific employees, and that's the stuff that I like really get excited about.
Absolutely. What we see is that AI-powered demand forecasting or smart inventory management are gaining a lot of traction. So, how do you see these technologies impacting how kind of brands scale? Do you see this as a catalyst or a, must-have in future for
Yeah,
brands to scale?
I think it's the classic, like it is inevitable, right? And there are the same way that, as wild as it sounds, like a lot of our competition is still using paper.
Mhm.
They're still using basic Excel docs, right? And then here we come along, and in 1 year, they'll become a competitor because we're utilizing software stacks that, if you ask somebody in logistics what their software stack is, a lot of them don't even know what that means, right? And so just to apply that, I think you're going to see the same thing with AI. I mean, I was fascinated. I'm always a bit obsessive about Google search and that stuff. And I was working with our marketing team, and just like a little thing that I can see that people that embrace AI and use AI, of we were creating our own banner ads, our own digital ads, and we come, a lot of us come from the marketing advertising background. And then we, kind of challenged Google to, create its own banners and videos and whatever. And I saw their videos. I was like, these are garbage. Like, that's not even our colors. Like, why would we say those words or whatever? And they are crushing the ads that we put together that we thought would be the most effective, right? And I see that same thing with brands, just utilizing it for simple, making product copy individualized for each channel. Because the way you describe and sell your product on Amazon is probably not the way you want to display and sell it on your website,
Mhm.
and not the way you do it on Walmart. So just having that ability, I expect to see a group of traditional consumer packaged goods brands, companies that embrace AI to just get propelled that much faster. And the companies that are using copywriters, that are using photographers, all of that stuff, like they're just going to be too slow and expensive to keep up with those other brands. And we're already seeing it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
What a time.
So probably this is my last AI question. I know we talked a lot about
Sure.
AI, but
Yeah, no, it's great.
yep. So AI is changing how companies, personalize the customer experience, right? That is one of the biggest area
Absolutely.
where do you think fulfillment and logistics will follow the same path or already be following the same path towards like hyper customization?
I think it's absolutely already impacting. We see it just kind of creep into, it's almost like I view it as, there was a time not that long ago when people couldn't imagine using a Shopify type of product, right? They're like, no, you need to build it from scratch. It needs a whatever. Shopify comes in and swoops and crushes everybody. Most people spin up on Amazon servers, right? It's just the thing, or they use Stripe for, certain things. And I think AI is going to be the same way. And I already see it happening where it's just this thing that you use inevitably because it is such an advantage and it's built into everything we do. And whether it's an AI assistant or, I get, you know, uh, man, I get probably 300 to 500 emails every day. And just having somebody sift through those, that's really tricky. And you start adding in like direct messages on social media. I mean, that's like a full-time job for somebody to review all the messages, and you need to review those because we had a proposal, an RFP from Walmart that we almost missed because luckily somebody like caught it, but that's really easy for a human to even see that and go, that's an ad from Walmart, but it wasn't, it's not really, right? So I think it's inevitable and it's already happening. And I'm excited to see what it can do. And it's really exciting when you start applying it to like robotics within a warehouse. So
Absolutely.
that's the part I'm ready for.
Yep. Yep. Well, that makes so much sense. Paul, you recently spoke about power of focus, doubling down on what you do best, right?
Yeah.
And I think in our conversation in the first question, you already kind of touched base on that, and that has been the key to your success, I believe.
Yeah.
Mindset shape Bulu's success.
Yeah. I think that, when we first started, I've always been really involved with other entrepreneurs and other companies and really trying to learn from the best, but also learn from the worst, right? And see what the pros and cons. And there always seems to be a couple of common features between successful entrepreneurs and non-successful entrepreneurs. And I'd say the things that I see is, number one is like they just stick it out. They just keep pushing forward and they just keep going. And I think sometimes people see opportunity and success earlier, and sometimes people see it later. It doesn't really matter. It's almost like when do all the planets align for you? And so I think that's one of the things that I always pay attention to. Solving the hard problem. We already talked about that. But the other thing that I saw a lot of people fail, and frankly, like I've seen our company get off track, is they're just kind of spread thin, focusing on more things. And we just actually had an employee review today, and the person we were with is doing a phenomenal job, but they keep adding things to their list, which I think naturally it feels good and you feel more productive. And I challenged a person. I said, hey, if this thing, column A, is successful and you're doing well at it, don't stop there and add column B and C. Like, say no to those things and make column A even that much better, right? Like more focus on those things. And it never has failed where the less roles that we give people within the company, the more success and the better they become at those things. And I've just seen too many entrepreneurs fail chasing multiple things. And
Absolutely.
it's really hard to say no to things and to focus, but the more you can tighten your message, the kind of tighter the niche that you can find, the less that you do. Like, I'm at a point now where I'm like, I really do like two or three things, and when we first started, I did a million things. And I think the hard part is when you focus in, you don't always see the results immediately. So you might be pushing in something and you have to know, stopping and quitting are two very different things, right? But
Absolutely.
you have to know that, when you got to push a little bit more, but also you need to really have good people around you to be able to say like, hey, that thing isn't working, right? Like the marketing messaging or, this thing we're focusing in on our company isn't really working. And so I think a lot of just watching other entrepreneurs really struggle and seeing that the happy ones and the ones with free time are really only doing a couple of things. They're doing it incredibly well. And that's hard because it's letting other things slide. And a lot of us have like that perfectionist mentality, but you really have to ask yourself, like, does that thing even really matter? And how does it contribute to the goal? And man, if it doesn't align with your goal, stop doing it and forget what people are saying about that thing.
Absolutely. I can relate to that as a so much as a startup founder. I
Yeah.
mean, every night I dream about a lot of use cases, but the thing is, I have to come back and say, okay, does it make sense? Is it like, the so I think we already discussed about the focus, how to become if you are entering into the business, how you know you may have millions of ideas, but the best thing is focus on those ideas that you want to double down on and keep.
Yeah. And really, really focus on what the market is telling you. I think that's a big thing that people, there's what you want to do. Like, I never thought we'd own a logistics company, like I never thought we'd be in fulfillment. That's like, if you would have told me that 10 years ago, I would have laughed at you. But like, that's what the market wanted. And I think that's another part that's distracting for people. They like their ideas, they're in love with their ego or like whatever, but it's like, man, just like shut up and listen and focus on like people, like customers and potential customers, like they will tell you what they want, but it's your job to understand and to kind of market it back to the world in a digestible way.
Absolutely. we already talked about like the focus, that's like the most important part of making your business successful. But you also mentor students and entrepreneurs, right? So I mean, we already talked about focus, but any other piece of advice that you would give them, especially if somebody is trying to break into your space, say for example e-commerce and logistics space, any other piece of advice that you would give them?
Yeah, I met with a couple of student groups this week. I enjoy it, and I wish there were, students that are potentially starting a business. I mean, they really kind of need a little bit of guidance and a little bit of help and a little pat on the back and tussle in the hair. But one thing that came up was people were kind of like, how do you kind of pursue something, go forward? How did you ever get good at logistics? Because this is complicated stuff. I don't know how we do what we do if you really wanted to boil it down. And kind of like this, I've replied to a bunch of students of like, as weird as it sounds, you just have to kind of decide. Like, you just decide that you're going to do a thing, right? Like, there's a point where like we just decided that we are going to become great at logistics. And there's no magic formula about it. It's just getting better and better every single day. And also, I think that what comes with that is you really have to get over the fear of embarrassment. Like that I think if you looked at everything that we've done, some people call it courage or fearless. My wife calls it my shamelessness, right? But that ability to just kind of like swallow your pride, pick up the phone, go try to sell something, admit like, your business model doesn't work and you just have to decide to fix it. And I think those two things are really important for entrepreneurs because like it's a real ego check, right? Like
Absolutely.
maybe your thing isn't working, right? And maybe you just need to decide to move in a new direction and you just need to be okay with not having all the answers and being correct. And I think that's one thing that I wish I would have known starting. And what's cool is the more that you're kind of open and honest and vulnerable about it, and you start working with companies and entrepreneurs, like a lot of people want to see entrepreneurs succeed. Like they'll look for a reason to work with you because they can see you're the type of person that's going to figure it out for them. So that's something that I like really encourage a lot of entrepreneurs and business leaders to, look at. Like it's just okay not to have the answer. Now decide, move forward, get over the embarrassment of it, and innovate, look for that problem.
Absolutely. I can relate so much to this point. And also in the previous question, you mentioned one thing. It's okay to stop on something, but don't quit.
Right.
So that's, I think, a great piece of advice for people like us or any budding entrepreneurs.
Yeah.
So Paul, thank you so very much. It
Thank
was
you. I
an
appreciate the
enlightening
time. It's fun.
session, and it was great talking to you. And thank you so much for joining. And all the best to Bulu. I think it will reach new heights, and keep innovating.
Thank you very much. And anybody looking for shipping, I'm not hard to find.